All right, so we talked in the previous episode. We talked about the NFL free agency day one. We talked about Tua Tagovailoa getting released from Miami. We talked about Minka Fitzpatrick heading to the Jets. Travis Kelce returning to the Chiefs for 14 years, actually in his 14th season. Max Crosby heads to Baltimore and all that stuff. So, and then we updated March Madness for both men's and women's yesterday. So, we should be excited. Speaking of excitement, what's coming up in today's JDB's morning cap? And we say good morning. Welcome to JDB's morning cap. Today is March 10th, 2026. I know we're ready for this. I know we're ready for this moment here today. So I know how excited are you. So we can do everything we could. But if that's the case, then there's not much you can really worry about doing this show day in and day out. So we'll have to find out what's going on in the NFL. So we'll see how these things go by here today. So let's see what this is all about, and that's about learning experience. All right, let's get this show started. All right, let's start with the NFL. Look at the free agencies from yesterday, day one. How about this? Raiders had several additions yesterday. Raiders bring Tyler Lindenbaum back, center. He gets a 3-year, $81 million deal. Then the Raiders have signed Quay Walker for 3 years, $40.5 million. And then you got Nakobe Dean signing a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Raiders. And then Jalen Naylor signed a 3-year deal for $35 million. Quitty Pay signs a 3-year, $48 million deal. Eric Stokes also signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. And then Malcolm Contz signs a 1-year, $11 million deal. So Lindbrom, Walker, Dean, Naylor, Pay, Stokes, and Contz. 7 players have signed by the Raiders yesterday. 8 additions overall. Taron Johnson is with the Raiders by Taron Johnson is a Raider from a trade. So the Raiders have. So here's the question about the additions. Did the Raiders made so many moves way too early, or did the Raiders made an impression? I think the Raiders made an impression yesterday. I'm impressed with the Raiders. I think the Raiders have clearly overhauled their roster. I mean, do you think it's still a good roster? Not really. However, there are some moments that they could win some games and they could be better in the future. So maybe the Raiders should be happy that they add far too more guys that you can trust with. 8 players have acquired by either signing or a trade. So there's 8 additions, roughly 3 subtractions. So the Raiders subtractions this offseason so far. Let's take a look at the subtractions. Max Crosby was traded, and then Geno Smith got released, and then most recently Daniel Carlson is a free agent. But they did add Matt Gay from Indianapolis. So they did add someone. So Daniel Carlson is leaving the Raiders after he spent a little time with the Minnesota Vikings before he got released. And then Carlson signed with the Raiders middle of the 2018 season. He played 7.5 seasons with the Raiders. Carlson has played 8 total seasons in the NFL. He's played 7.5 for the Raiders. So Daniel Carlson is a free agent. Matt Gay is signing with the Raiders to have a new kicker. Raiders need a new kicker for sure, because special teams was disaster for the Raiders last year. Give up multiple returns for a touchdown, missing crucial field goals, some block punts. So the Raiders special teams expect to improve. So hopefully that was the case for the Raiders. So that's what this is all about. They need someone. They would have to step up. And right now, who is the biggest win? Tyler Linderbaum so far. And then you got Quay Walker. I think the defense, the biggest win so far is the Raiders' defense. I mean, losing Max Crosby, adding Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Kwity Paye, Eric Stokes, Michael Kontz. So I think defense, and then some offense, and then Teron Johnson, and then some offensive guys like Linderbaum and Jalen Naylor. I mean, they need a stretcher receiver to work Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers when he gets healthy. So my biggest issue, we know Kenny Pickett is signed with the Carolina Panthers. I think Kenny is going to work with Bryce Young. So and then that downs Aiden O'Connell, and now they're going to draft Fernando Mendoza, and that's the key. Will Raiders sign another experienced quarterback only if it's a backup role? They need who can be really, really consistent. So they need like Jacoby Brissett type quarterback, something like that, who can help teach how the name of the brand of the quarterback. So the Raiders, this is an impressive start for the Raiders, signing several members who's going to play the Raiders next year. Hopefully, I mean, the expectations for the Raiders are still a little low. They're still low. Oh, I'm not sure the win total for the Raiders will look like, but I think they're going to be better, but the win total is not going to be high for the Raiders. But they're going to improve for sure. Drafting Fernando Mendoza. And then you got some offensive guys like Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker. They're all talented guys. So they have themselves in the future. That's why the Raiders were 3-14. The future is going to be different for the Raiders by going forward. But the biggest news that we mentioned, that the Falcons have signed Tua Tagovailoa in a 1-year contract. So Tua is a Falcon, but with who's the Falcons head coach? Do you know? Do you know who's the Falcons head coach? Kevin Stefanski. So, okay, Kevin Stefanski is a Falcons head coach after Raheem Morris was fired multiple months ago. I was going to talk about Tua signing a 1-year deal. So here's with Pennix being out for the rest of the year last year, Kirk Cousins took over the rest of the year. Falcons went 8-9 last year. A little bit disappointing that they didn't get to the playoffs. They also lost by a tiebreaker because the Panthers swept the Falcons. They lost to Buccaneers one of the 2 games. They lost, and they had a bad loss to the Jets in Week 13. The Falcons' loss to the Jets in Week 13 last year was a big missed opportunity. It was a big miss because you were like 2-3 plays away from getting into the playoffs. All you gotta do is beat the Panthers one of the 2 games. You would have been in right now. But you're not. So let's just say this. You talk about every NFL game. You can make a lot of choices. You can make a bunch of stuffly choices that you're really gonna have. So you do want to talk about these moments and these stuff. And now Tua heads to Atlanta, and what's transpired in 2026? What's his expectations? So if Pennix does come back, is there going to be a quarterback competition between Tua and Pennix? So we have to find out. So technically, There could be some quarterback competition. So it'll be Penix, Tagovailoa, and Easton Stick. He remains a Falcons roster. So we'll find out who starts, and we'll find out who gets the number 2 depth chart of the Falcons quarterback. So this is an opportunity for Stefanski, whether or not they're both quarterbacks were unhealthy. They both suffered their season-ending injuries. So don't get ahead of yourselves because of this. So the best case scenario about Tua Tagovailoa, they need someone else to step it up. So how's the Falcons' season will look like in 2026 with Tua and Michael Penix Jr.? Well, it's going to be challenging. And why the Falcons' season is going to be challenging? Because even though the Falcons got skilled guys, hopefully they get a better offensive line. Even though they franchise tag Kyle Pitts, Drake London, I believe this is his 4th season with the Falcons, something like that. And then you got Bijan Robinson. They got talented guys, but the Falcons' defense was actually a little bit better last year than they had in years past. Jeff Obert is the defensive coordinator. He's done an amazing job, but they need some more consistency from these guys. Something you can really help with. So something you don't want or need. But that's a big difference. All right. So what's coming up on JDB's morning cap? We'll talk more free agent signings. We'll talk other big names, including Mike Evans. Mike Evans leaving Tampa Bay? Also coming up next, we'll talk chaotic number 1 seeds. Who played last night? Who's playing tonight? And then who are the biggest winners and losers in the free agency day 1? Yesterday was day 1 of free agency. So we'll step away in about 3 minutes. All right, welcome back here. So let's talk some number 1 seed chaos. So let's take a look at the Eastern Conference standings. Only the teams are trying to get the number 1 seed. Eastern Pistons has 45-18. The Pistons are sitting on a 4-game losing streak. The Celtics 43-21. They're 2.5 back for the number 1 seed. So let's see. And then you got New York Knicks losing again yesterday. Offense continued to struggle. The Cavs got back on track, won against the Sixers last night. For the West, it could be a 2-3 team race. Thunder won a thriller against the Nuggets last night in OKC. And then San Antonio Spurs plays tonight against the Celtics in San Antonio. Minnesota is rolling as of late. They're number 3 seed. So here's the question. Not only is the chaos for the number 1 seed in any of these conferences, so I'm going to ask this question. Which number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference will likely have the advantage? Boston or Detroit? Well, to me, I don't mind the Celtics getting number 1. I think technically with the Pistons losing 4 in a row, Pistons have not played their best basketball during that stretch. The Celtics have played their best basketball pretty much the whole year. But I like Boston Celtics to steal the number one seed because Jaylen Brown is playing at MVP level. Now Jason Tatum is back, and their defense is top 10 in the NBA. I trust the Celtics because Pistons. They're pretty good contenders before they had an ongoing slide. We'll talk to Pistons in a minute, but the Celtics have been playing their best basketball month after month after month. I mean, we've just been talking about every time after Celtics sweeping the Cavs, they're clearly NBA Finals contenders. They have wins against the Cavs. They beat the Knicks 1 of the 3 times this year. They beat the Pistons 1 out of 4 times this year. They beat Toronto 3 times. So they could beat anyone in the East. So even the Celtics and the Pistons square off each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think the Celtics could get the Pistons this time. The Pistons took 3 out of 4 in the regular season. So that'll be that in this one here. As for the Western Conference, we'll get to that in a minute. So as for Detroit, they lost 4 games in a row. They do play tonight in Brooklyn. Because last time they played Brooklyn, Pistons blew a 23-point lead 3 days ago in Detroit. Now this is a get-right game for the Pistons. They try to snap their 4-game losing streak. The Nets have won 2 games in a row after they had dropped their last 10, ironically. So Detroit trying to get back on track. They have lost 4 in a row. Offensively struggled. Defense broke down as well. But they're still a good team. They still can. I don't know how the Pistons are going to hold on to number 1 seed in the East. I mean, the Pistons, yes, they're going through a big tough slide right now, but the fact is, I think they can get the number 1 seed. But when you look at their schedule, they're at Brooklyn, they'll play Philadelphia, Memphis, Toronto, Washington twice, Golden State, then they'll play the Lakers, then Atlanta, New Orleans, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Toronto again, Minnesota again, at Philadelphia, at Orlando, hosting Milwaukee, at Charlotte, and then they'll end the season at Indiana. They still can end up roughly They can finish 58 wins. They could be 58-24. If they finish 59-23, that's a pretty good record, to say the least. So that's Detroit basketball. All right, next one, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder. Thunder has the best record in basketball. Last night it was a thriller in OKC. Thunder beat the Nuggets 129-126. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander finished 35 points, 15 assists, 9 rebounds, just a rebound shy for a triple-double. 1 steal. He didn't turn it over. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander hit a game-winning three-pointer with 3 seconds left in the game. And then Nuggets missed a deep heat 3. Tried to send him in overtime. But it was an incredible game. Now SGA is now back in line to win the MVP. So despite missing games, he's still in an MVP form. Meanwhile, Nikola Jokic, he had an outstanding game himself. He had 32 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and they end up losing the game, but they're not part of the number one seed. But the Thunder is the number one seed in the West. They've been the number one seed pretty much the whole year, to say the least. So that's that. The Thunder will play the Celtics on Thursday at OKC. So the Celtics will get ready for their tough test. The best is yet to come. Meanwhile, for the San Antonio Spurs try to get more ground in the Western Conference. The Spurs have won 17 of their last 18 games, which is best in the NBA. The Spurs are going to battle the Celtics tonight in San Antonio. The Spurs are 47-17 this season, and they're sitting 3 games back of the West. So if they win today, they'll be 2.5 back of the Western Conference. Because Thunder do not play until Thursday against the Celtics. Spurs have wins against the Thunder 4 out of 5 times. They beat the Pistons. They swept them. They beat Houston 3 out of 4 times this year. They beat the Lakers 2 out of 3 times this year. They beat Denver. So they beat some good teams. They beat a bunch of good teams this year. So that's not a surprise at all. The question is, who most likely walk out the number one seed in the West? It's probably the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I do like the Spurs because pressure's on Wembanyama because he's trying to win a championship, even though this is his 3rd season in the NBA. So he's trying to win a championship this year. So that would be the best case scenario to get the number one seed in the Western Conference. All right, so coming up next, we'll talk more NFL. Is Mike Evans leaving Tampa? We'll find out. And where is he signing with? Also, we'll have more free agency. Maybe some big names like Travis Etienne and all that kind of stuff. And then who are the biggest winners and losers in free agency in day one? So we'll have to find all out right after the break. Welcome back, y'all. We have breaking news in the NFL from yesterday. The Niners have, so Mike Evans will not return in Tampa Bay for next year. So he's going to sign. However, the 49ers did sign Mike Evans in a 3-year, $64 million $60 million deal for 3 years for Mike Evans. So he spent 12 outstanding seasons with Mike Evans, including 11 consecutive seasons with over 1,000 yards receiving. And Mike Evans has won 1 Super Bowl in those 12 illustrious seasons. So let's take a closer look for Mike Evans. Let's take a look at the 49ers. Projection in 2026. That is notable. You got Brock Purdy as your quarterback. Then try to retool the offensive line. And then you got Mike Evans, but George Kittle will not play to start the 2026 season. You got Christian McCaffrey. So So the possible departures, we could see Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk leaving San Francisco. So there's going to be some draft picks along the way for the 49ers. But the biggest. So let's talk about Mike Evans and not the rest of this offense. So if you want to talk about Mike Evans, that's fine. So what Mike Evans has to do to have a monster 2026 season? I think Mike Evans has to perform well like he did in Tampa Bay. But I respect Mike Evans the heck out of it. It's just because there's a lot of things you've been talking about Mike Evans and all that stuff, but the 49ers, they try to have a Super Bowl. They're looking for a Super Bowl expectations for San Francisco. But the biggest issue right now is Jawan Jennings, Trent Williams, defensive health like Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. So someone needed their help. So the only good thing is the Niners did finish 12-5 last year. It finished 12-5 last year. So there was some hope and optimism. So the best case scenario right now is to get to that point because Mike Evans is a talented. He's a talented man. I mean, he's been all pro. He's been a Pro Bowl bowler. He's been a Super Bowl champion. But Mike Evans is the guy who can work with Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. We know George Kittle is going to be out for most portion of 2026. Don't know when he's coming back. George Kittle got hurt in the NFC wildcard game against the Eagles. I mean, the Niners have dealt a lot of injuries over the last few years. And especially on defense, nutrition is going to be key for the 49ers in 2026. When you look at the Niners' schedule, they're facing some playoff teams from last year. I know they're going to play the Rams and Seahawks twice each. They're going to play the Eagles, rematch for the playoffs from last year, NFC wildcard game. And then you got to play. Who else they need to play? Who else are a playoff team? Niners will play the AFC West this year. Denver and Chargers were in the playoffs last year. Niners will play the Chiefs. Did not make the playoffs, but it is a Super Bowl rematch, however. And then you got to play the AFC East at home. Niners were a third place team. Niners would have to play the Dolphins. Dolphins were not a playoff team. And then they got to face the NFC North at home for the 49ers. Guess who's third place? Minnesota Vikings. Winning record, did not make the playoffs. And then the NFC South, Atlanta Falcons at Atlanta. And then they got to play the Cowboys, not a playoff team. Giants, not a playoff team. So Arizona, not a playoff team, twice. Raiders, not a playoff team. So there you go. So the Niners have an easier schedule in 2026. The Niners had an easier schedule last year. Got to the playoffs. This year they got an easier schedule this year. So, including teams they had losing records from last year, but some tough games. But the stricter schedule is a little impact for sure. Like I said, teams has winning records, or teams have winning records and got themselves to the playoffs. The team who has winning record and were playoff teams from last year: Philadelphia, Seattle, both Rams and Chargers, Broncos. So there's roughly 4 or 5 teams were in the playoffs last year. Are we missing one more team? So with that being said, Niners have to travel heavily next year. They're gonna play the Rams to start the season in Melbourne, Australia, and then they're gonna play in Mexico City beginning December. So the schedule is clearly heavy. So the 49ers are going to travel historically the most miles in the NFL with 38,000 miles. That's historically. Now Mike Evans has played some international games. So Mike Evans has to be healthy. That's the key. Mike Evans has got to be healthy. We're looking back at that schedule. This is a 100% difference makers. Something you really don't need to worry about. That's not the worst case scenario for this. All right, coming up on JDB's Morning Cap, we'll talk more free agent signings. We'll talk Michael Pittman, Travis Etienne, and other signings of day one. So we'll keep their fingers crossed. And then still coming up, we have the biggest winners and losers of NFL free agency day one. Today is day 2 of the NFL free agency. So we will continue this conversation right after this. Welcome back here. We did have some breaking news to share. The Steelers have acquired Michael Pittman from the Indianapolis Colts. So that's the good news here. Also, Michael Pittman Jr. is signing a 3-year, $59 million contract. That's the biggest additions here. They add a couple more guys. The Steelers signed Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay. He signs a 3-year, $36.75 million deal. And finally, Rico Dowdle signs a 2-year, $12.25 million deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, 3 Steelers players have signed or traded and signed. So Pittman was acquired from the Colts, also signed a 3-year deal with the Steelers. Dowdle signed the Steelers came from Carolina, and then Dean from Tampa Bay, he signed a 3-year deal with Pittsburgh. So right now Pittsburgh is making some money moves as well. But the biggest question mark, where's the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Aaron Rodgers is still unsigned right now. So right now, the QBs for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mason Rudolph and Will Howard, are in the Steelers quarterback depth chart for 2026. So right now, with Mike McCarthy is a new Steelers coach, how the Steelers find a solution as a number one quarterback? Well, technically, the Steelers just need some answers. They need Aaron Rodgers would be the right guy, but I'm not sure if Aaron Rodgers is going to return to Pittsburgh next year. But it is so hard to really think about. Clearly, it is really hard to believe that these guys have playing some confidence, but we've seen several guys that can put them together, but now they just need anyone that can really step up. But this is a really different story. So if that's the case, then there's not much you can really worry about. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dalwell will make a huge difference in the running game. Pittman will have a productive season. And Dean, we know the Steelers defense, what they're capable of. But the biggest issue right now is the number one quarterback. Right now, Mason Rudolph and Will Howard are in the depth chart for 2026. And Aaron Rodgers unsigned. Then the Steelers are looking for a quarterback from the draft. If they do neither of these things, then there's going to be potential competition. I mean, Steelers have not had a losing record for decades. So it's been that way for a while. We talk about all this about Pittsburgh. The talent, the skill position is improving, but the quarterback play needs to improve by going forward. Although you have Mike McCarthy as your head coach, the AFC North is going to be more competitive. You got Baltimore and Cincinnati. Cincinnati has signed Brian Cook from Kansas City and Boyd Mafe from Seattle. So the Bengals need some defensive upgrades. But that's going to help their differences to decide this one year. All right. So with Tua getting released from Miami, the Dolphins did find a quarterback, Malik Willis. Malik Willis signs a 3-year, $67.5 million deal, which means he's going to work with Jeff Hafley. Hafley was an ex-Packer defensive coordinator. So we could see Malik Willis being a starter or full-time by going forward. Malik Willis has never been a week one starter before. Malik Willis is favored Malik Willis will be favored to become a week one starter. So that I'm really happy for Malik Willis signing a 3-year contract, and hopefully gets an opportunity to be a full-time starter. He should be a full-time starter for the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins have Quinn Ewers But there's a little competition, but I like Malik Willis to be a week one starter. I think he deserves. He's winning games. He's won some games with Green Bay. I mean, there's some good moments. So now Malik Willis has a pretty good chance to gain his moment over there. So now you could really put yourself in a better opportunity, and this is everyone's dream. We're putting themselves in a better position to go with that. So congratulations to Travis Etienne. Congratulations to Malik Willis signing a 3-year contract with Miami Dolphins. He deserved that. Uh, do you think Dolphins will win games with Willis? Well, we'll see about that. Maybe, maybe not. It's not going to be easy. So, so we could see Willis and Ewers to battle for the number one quarterback depth chart. I think Willis should win the job in Miami. So he signed a big contract. He signed a 3-year contract, and now he has a chance to prove it. All right, so let's move on here. The Saints make some additions as well. The Saints have signed Travis Etienne a 4-year, $52 million contract. He came from Jacksonville. And then Saints also add David Edwards, guard, signed a $15 million a year. It could be. Yeah, so there's some additions for the Saints. And so he signed a 4-year deal, $61 million. So that was a huge win for the Saints. Now, working with Tyler Sugar, I think the Saints may make some noise. I think Saints may make some noise this year because they can easily win division. You got Carolina, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay. Well, I think New Orleans could win division with their young quarterback, Tyler Sugar. He has played very well for New Orleans Saints in his rookie season last year. That was a game changer for them, and now they just keep it working on it. All right, coming up, we'll still talk about more free agency and all that stuff. Who won the deal? Who lost the deal? Deal for day one free agency is all coming up next. All right, welcome back here. So here's the other notable signings. The Giants have signed Greg Newsome, and the other New York Giants signing that we just mentioned, I almost didn't. The Giants also signed Tremaine Edmonds from Chicago. Tremaine Edmonds signed a 3-year contract, $36 million from New York. So the Bears signed Kobe Bryant, I think, as well. And the Giants, also the biggest one, Isaiah Likely. The Giants have signed Isaiah Likely a 3-year, $40 million contract. So the Giants are making some decent moves yesterday to ensure the Giants season will be improved. So hopefully that's the case that time here. So right now do you think the New York Giants will improve in 2026? I think they could. They could improve. In the last couple of years, they won just in 2024 3-14. Last year 4-13. So just 7-27 for the Giants in each of the last 2 years. They fired Brian Daboll as head coach. He's now a Titan offensive coordinator now. And now John Harbaugh is now a New York Giants head coach. So the Giants did sign three guys. Edmonds, Likely, and most recent ex-Jaguar Greg Newsome the second. I mean now you got Jackson Dart, you got Cam Scatterboo, Malik Neighbors on the offensive side. But defense is the biggest priority this offseason if Giants want to get back to the playoffs. The Giants have not made a playoff since 2022-23 season. That was Brian Daboll's first year, and Daniel Jones got him to the playoffs for the first and only time in the playoffs with New York. He's now a Colt. He placed on an FT right now. So, and that was that. So, this is a huge difference, a huge step for them. The Seahawks did bring Rashid Shaheed back. To the Seahawks. So they did bring Rashid Shaheed back. He extended his contract. So there's a lot of things there. So for Rashid Shaheed, he signed a 3-year, $51 million contract. So, despite the number of departures for Seattle, what's the win total look like for Seattle? Not a lot. They won 14 games last year, but they're probably going to downgrade the win total. They're probably going to win 9 games for Seattle. Understandable. They're going to be defending Super Bowl champs, but they're going to go. There's lumps along the way. So I think Seattle, whether or not they still manage to make the playoffs, depends on the tiebreaker situation. But now, this is a different story for Seattle to get things going. I mean, it would be best to put themselves in a better position right now. So that was that here. All right, so the Buffalo Bills did extend Dawson Knox a 3-year deal. So they're still working with Josh Allen. Now they already got DJ Moore from Chicago. The Buffalo Bills, they still need tight end production. I mean, they still need to keep their tight end production. That's the time you really want to see. And there's another big name on the list. And that's what really happens right now in this one here. And I think Dawson Knox can make a huge difference here. All right, so Texans have signed Reed Blankenship a 3-year contract, $24.75 million, $24.75 million. So right now, let's start with the Eagles subtractions. Why the Eagles? why the Eagles are subtracting players so far. The Eagles have subtracting the players from last year. Offseason this year is even worse. The Eagles have subtracted Reed Blankenship for Houston. He left for Houston. Nakobe Dean left for the Raiders. Raiders' 3-year deal. Jalen Phillips signed a 4-year deal with the Panthers. He also left. So notable Eagles players, mainly on defense, have left Philadelphia. How disappointing, and soon to be A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is expected to leave Philadelphia. So there could be another subtraction. So we'll find out when we talk about Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are subtracting players now. Last year's offseason, they subtracting players. They add in the midseason. And then this year, they're subtracting more guys. They just continued. Maybe the talent of the Eagles' talent is going to be declined for Philadelphia. And that's a big issue right now. They're declining players that they weren't supposed to expect. It's not going to make a huge difference. It's just because of that. The Eagles have declined several players this offseason and last offseason. A.J. Brown could be next because he feels like he wants to go to the Patriots. But the Eagles need to do something in the free agency. The Eagles have not signed anyone. The Eagles have not signed anyone just yet. And this is day 2. This is free agency day 2. And so far, 3 Eagles players are moving on to other teams. You would have been okay with that? Yeah. That is a giant difference right now. Because of that, there's all the situations you're really going to make it out. So that one is going to hurt in this one. There's so many free agent signings going on here today and yesterday. We've seen everything else to being around in that one here. So we see there's a lot going on. All right, so come next, we'll find out who are the biggest winners, top 5 biggest winners, and top 5 biggest losers in the free agency day 1. And then we'll wrap it up. What's coming up in tomorrow's episode? We'll talk more NFL free agency throughout this week. So it's going to be a heavy load. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to JDB's Morning Cap. We'll talk about the biggest winners and losers in the free agency. So we'll start the pros first. But before we do that, so far we had so many crazy trades, crazy free agent signings in day 1 yesterday. Day 2 is the free agency. Day 2, there's going to be more free agency signings between today and tomorrow and the rest of this stretch. So we're going to keep this thing in mind. All right, so we will talk about all this. So we'll find out who are the biggest top 5 winners and top 5 biggest losers for this one. All right, so the biggest winners in the NFL free agency day 1. Let's start from 5 to 1 in this one. So if I pick up the 5 teams in this one, so I'm gonna pick top 5 here. Number 5 is New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints is number 5. Uh, they add Edwards and Etienne, and Kamara is probably leaving New Orleans. But I think New Orleans, they got their future is bright for the Saints. I think they can get to the playoffs. They have not made the playoffs since 2020-21 season. The last time the Saints have made the playoffs without Drew Brees, we got to go back to 2000. Aaron Brooks was a quarterback that year. So it's been 25 years since the Saints made the playoffs without Drew Brees. So, and that was that. So the Saints is number 5. Number four is going to be, number 4 is the interesting here. Number 4 is the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs made some additions this offseason in free agency day 1. The Kansas City Chiefs add Kenneth Walker. They bring Travis Kelce back. And the Chiefs signed Tonga in a contract as well. So that was a good sign for the Chiefs. So I think Kansas City is number 4. So at least the solution continues. Number 3 is the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams add Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, signed multiple 3-year deals. I think the Rams have continued to improve their rosters year by year. So I think the Rams are number 3 in this one. I think the best case scenario is there's so many good things they can go around with, but the Rams, they can get to the Super Bowl with this talented roster. Number 2 is the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are number 2. They add Malik Willis. I mean, I think this Dolphins team is going younger. I mean, they're fresh. They're trying to prove their system. They try to get to this point. I think Dolphins is the second biggest winner in the free agency day 1. Signing Malik Willis in 3 years, that's a huge win for them going forward. So, yeah, and then the Jets also part of it too. How about the New York Jets? I didn't even talk about that yet, did I? The New York Jets are also one of the biggest winners. I'm going to put in an honorable mention category the New York Jets. I'm going to put Dolphins in honorable mention, but number 2 is the New York Jets. The New York Jets have made a lot of moves. Minka Fitzpatrick, Demario Davis, David Onamaya, actually David Onyemata, Kingsley Ingabert, Joseph Asai, and Dane Belton. All defense. The Jets are number 2. And finally, number 1 is the Raiders. The Raiders have made strongly aggressive moves. This is impressive. They made impressive moves yesterday for the Raiders. They made so many improvements. In the NFL. So there's a lot of pros. Honorable mention is the Miami Dolphins. Number 2 is the New York Jets, the second biggest winner. How about the biggest losers, top 5 biggest losers in the free agency? So number 5, it's gonna be the number 5 is the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, same old Cowboys. The Cowboys have not signed anyone, even though they did add someone. They did add Rashawn Gary. That's just not enough to stand for it. So number 5, the biggest losers, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 4, I'm gonna go with the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, understandable. They lost so many guys, even though they brought Rashid Shaheed back for 3 years. But Seattle is losing more guys this offseason than expected. Number 3 is the number 3 is gonna be interesting. Number 3 is the Atlanta Falcons. They did sign Tua Tagovailoa, but they just need more additions in the wide receiver. I don't trust the Falcons this much. They can't win division if they don't sign a wide receiver. Number two, interesting here is the New England Patriots. The Patriots only signed 3 guys this offseason so far. The Patriots are number 2. They just don't have that type of stuff right now because of that. And number 1, this is a close call, is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have lost so many guys. Darius Slade, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Isaiah Rodgers, Nakobe Dean, Reed Blankenship, Jahan Dotson on the offensive side. So there's a lot going on in this one. Honorable mention, the Cleveland Browns. They desperately need an offensive line. They don't have that one right now. So the biggest losers on the honorable mention is the Cleveland Browns. Those are the biggest ones. You really have to make it out a little bit. So it's a really tough situation because of it. So that would be that. So this is a situation you do not want to miss. At this point, they could really ill afford to lose everyone else to get with it. So you got enough to stand for it. It would have been cool right now. So those are the top five biggest winners and top 5 biggest losers of this free agency. The top 5 biggest winners: number 1, the Las Vegas Raiders; number 2, New York Jets; number 3, Los Angeles Rams; number 4, Kansas City Chiefs; and number 5, New Orleans Saints. The honorable mention, the biggest winner, the Miami Dolphins. The top 5 biggest losers: number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles; number 2, New England Patriots; number 3, Atlanta Falcons; number 4, is the Seattle Seahawks, and number 5, the Dallas Cowboys. So those are, and then that's the top 5 biggest losers. The honorable mention, biggest losers, is the Cleveland Browns, and that's that. All right, let's wrap things up. What's coming up in tomorrow's JDB's Morning Cap? We will continue their NFL free agent signings. We'll recap Spurs and Celtics, Wolves, Lakers from tonight's game. They're both in action tonight. Other games. So other games I'm looking forward for tomorrow's game. we will have Cavs Magic, Rockets Nuggets. So I'll recap for that on Thursday. So we'll see how that goes out here. But we did talk about today. The Raiders have made impressive moves yesterday. We talked about the Eagles declining, subtracting players and all that kind of stuff. We talked about the biggest winners and losers. We talked about the number one seed chaos in the NBA. And all that stuff. So yeah, and then we'll still talk more NFL free agency. Who are the biggest winners and losers day 2? So we'll talk about all that tomorrow. So as it develops, there's a lot of NFL free agency going on. All right, that's going to do it here. This is JDB's Morning Cap. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow morning.